Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Local Film Talk, the show where we talk to people in the local filmmaking scene here in North Carolina, Central North Carolina, Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, that area. I'm Bob Walters. I'm the host of the show, and I'm not going to say we're doing something a little different this time because I say that every time. It's getting a little bit cliched, but this is an episode I've been wanting to do for a while. Someone that I've been wanting to talk to for a while. We have on John Slattery. You may know him better as Doc Rotten from Horror News Radio. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Bob. How you doing? Glad to be here.
Thanks for coming on. We've been I've been talking to you for a while, trying to figure out a time to get you on the show, and it just seemed like October, leading up to Thanksgiving, was the perfect time to talk to a guy doing a horror news website.
Yeah, October would be the time. It's also the busiest time, isn't it?
I'll bet it is for you.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, I keep myself so busy I can't do the things I would like to do, like do the haunted houses and stuff like that. I'm too.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, because you actually do some makeup effects and visual effects, right?
No, I don't. Not personally. No.
Oh, you just participate, like you're part of the crew?
Yeah. I get
okay.
made up.
Cool.
Yeah, usually Bill Mulligan handles that.
Yes, Bill Mulligan, the infamous Bill Mulligan. 7 degrees of Bill, or 6 degrees of Bill, as it is. It seems on this show. I'm always everybody's always bringing up Bill Mulligan, which actually he will be on next week's show. I'm planning on having a show about an episode about makeup effects. It's going to be Bill Mulligan, Will Stein, and who's the third one? He's going to kill me now. Michael Christopher, I believe. Yeah, that's next week, folks. But this week we're talking to John, who's been generous enough to sit down with me. We actually first met, I believe we first met, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, last year, probably. Oh, there's those interrupting cats I was telling you about. Black cats, no less. Halloween themed. But we met almost exactly a year ago at your house because Christopher G. Moore was filming Knobgoblins in your basement.
In my basement, yes. So when you see that short film, that wonderful short film from Christopher G. Moore, that's the scenery.
That is Doc Rotten's basement.
Got Knobgoblins in my basement. I don't know if I really want to say that too many more times, but hey,
if you say it too many times, it might come true.
We don't want that.
No, we don't.
The film is awesome, though. Check it out.
I have not had a chance to see it. I think it just started. I think it's only been in one festival so far, and it's been accepted to a couple others. So it's starting to make the rounds, and hopefully if it comes somewhere nearby, I'm definitely going to check it out.
Definitely, yeah. It's a monster film, so right up my alley.
Right up your alley. And Christopher actually contributes to one or two of the shows, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, Christopher started podcasting with us with the Hannibal Fan Podcast, and which we did while that show was still running.
And that sadly ended this summer.
Yeah, damn it. And then he also joins us for the American Horror Story Fan Podcast, which we're doing now.
Okay. That's on season 4 or 5 now?
5. Hotel.
5. Wow.
Lady Gaga. And we've been covering it since season 2 as a podcast, and I was covering it since season 1, doing write-ups for a site called The Widescreen Warrior back in the day when I was writing before I got into the podcasting. And Thomas Mariani has been my co-host on that ever since. And this year we brought on Dave Dreher and Christopher G. Moore from the Hannibal Fan Podcast to liven it up a bit, give it some extra punch. And and Thomas and Dave are also on Horror News Radio. So it all goes around in circles.
Right. So one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, obviously, you're big into horror movies, have been involved in a couple local ones, but you, as you mentioned, do a lot of podcasts for your website. And, there are a lot of people who are either doing podcasts or trying to get into doing some podcasting. And I thought it would be interesting to get info from somebody who's been doing it for a couple years to just kind of talk about your operation. How did you get into it, and how have things evolved since you started? What was it, 2 years ago? 2.5 years ago?
4.5 years ago.
4.5 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
4.5 years. I was a huge fan of podcasts back when you actually had to have the iPod
right.
to listen to it. Now with the iPhones, and iPads and all the other things. The mobile devices have made it just explode. It's so easy to.
Damn kids have it so easy now.
They do. Back in the day. So I started out being a guest host, being the horror guest host on a show called Widescreen Warrior. I was writing for them, and originally I was basically writing articles about horror films and reviewing movies, but not always horror films. And I started guesting on, and I would do every Halloween. I would come on for the 4 episodes every October and do the horror stuff for them. And the bug that I had quickly grew into like, I think I can actually do this. And Thomas and I started. I had started my own podcast, doing a monster movie podcast. Which ran for 75 episodes and is now on hiatus right now because we're concentrating on Horror News Radio.
Nice. I was going to ask you. You said you would guest host or be a guest on the show for a couple episodes in October. Mm-hmm. Would you go into their studio and just use their equipment, or did you actually have to build your own setup in your place and kind of get the bug and learn how to do it there?
Well, at first, all I needed was a mic and a headset. Mm-hmm. Which made it a lot easier. Starting off, you got to get comfortable because the first thing you got to learn is that you're going to hate your own voice.
Oh yeah, definitely. The first time you hear your voice played back from a recorder, you say, "Oh God, is that what I sound like? Holy shit!"
Yeah, and that's the hardest thing to get used to, and also getting rid of the ums and you knows and all the things that it's really difficult. I still have issues with that. You'll hear me and you knows, and we call those low hanging fruit as an editor because you want to go through, and I can actually recognize them now in my editing software.
Right. You do it enough, and you actually, as you're listening, you can anticipate, like you hear that little pause in your sentence and you say, "I'm about to say it," and there you go.
Yep, you kick yourself when you do it. Oh man, it's horrible. But yeah, so I got some practice there and started my own podcast. After about a year, I started writing for horrornews.net. And I approached them and said, "Hey, you guys don't have your own podcast. Would should we make one for you guys?" And I have one. Could it morph into something that, we could do together? And that became the horrornews.net podcast, which evolved into Horror News Radio. And which is interesting because horrornews.net as a podcast name is not it's a great name for a show, or a website, but it's a terrible name for a podcast because it won't come up in the searches and on iTunes because of the .net.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So after about 8 episodes, we changed the name to Horror News Radio.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and from there it went crazy. But also, what happened is Thomas, who had been doing, we had also started the American Horror Story podcast. We originally called it Shock Treatment on season 2, which turned out to be a bad idea because that didn't fit when it went to season 3 and season 4. So it became the American Horror Story Fan Podcast. So another, I've changed the name of just about every podcast I've started, which is interesting.
Now, what's that like? To kind of get into the nitty gritty of the broadcasting end, and I guess to some degree the business end of doing podcasts. Tell people a little what's involved with changing the name of a show, because it's, when you're talking podcasts, it's not like on TV where it's like people tune in at the same time and it's the same show, but the title's a little different. They just have to get used to the new name. Mm-hmm. Or, I've got to throw out all my old business cards and get some new ones made up. When you change the name of a podcast, you actually need to change the RSS feed and and everything in iTunes and all that stuff, correct? And so you actually lose all your subscribers and you have to tell them to move to the next one, right?
Not if you're smart. and I didn't have.
Oh, well, I'm not smart. You'll have to explain this to me.
I didn't have to do that on any of them. Because of the way I did not change the RSS feeds because the RSS feeds are not readily visible. I mean, people can get to them. So what the name of the RSS feed doesn't matter. So I did not change the RSS feed. Okay. All I ended up changing was the information I passed through the RSS feed to iTunes, which was changing the name, the changing the logo. I was fortunate that with all 3 of them that I changed, they didn't have their own domains.
They did.
They did not.
Did not. Okay.
So that was fortunate, because that would make it a little harder, because then you would have to change domain names and stuff like that.
Right. When you change if it was horrornews.net and then you change it to Horror News Radio, you let the one lapse, and now that feed doesn't go anywhere. Yeah.
So I was fortunate with all three of them, and they all turned out to be for the better.
Okay.
I changed originally my own podcast was called Doc Rotten's House of Horror. Well, that was silly, and I changed it to Monster Movie Podcast, which was far better podcast name. Shock Treatment, of course, for American Horror Story was a one and done, and we didn't know. We didn't know if we were going to do more than one that second season. So American Horror Story Fan Podcast made a better change for it. And then HorrorNews.net was just a problem in and of itself. And when we did Horror News Radio, one of the reasons we chose that was because, hey, the domain name is available. And
that helps.
We also chose the name radio because even though podcasting is becoming more and more familiar and people are knowing what it is, they still associate it with what radio is. That linkage is still not going away.
Right. Well, it's still audio only. You're listening to audio shows. And for a lot of people, some older folks or people who are less tech savvy, podcasts still connotate something, that's going to be a little more difficult for them to get a grasp on. Whereas radio, everybody knows what it is.
Mm-hmm. And there's been people that have been trying to move away from the word podcasting because, it came to be because you actually had to have an iPod.
Right, and it's intrinsically tied into Apple,
Right, but it's there. It's a thing. So most people have, given up those fights. Every once in a while, you hear somebody saying, "No, it's internet radio or something else." And, it isn't. It's podcast.
It's not a Kleenex. It's a tissue. Whatever. Screw it. Get a Kleenex.
That's exactly what it is. But it's growing. Podcasts such as like Serial have really grown the attention to what podcasting is.
Right.
And have broken through some of the barriers. And of course, like I said, mobile devices have made it just insane. And then they're getting into cars. Stitcher is like an alternative to iTunes. And with Stitcher, again, audio only, it allows an alternative to a radio inside your car. And newer cars have Stitcher in them. So
really?
So being on Stitcher is a growing thing. As a matter of fact, it's the only other way of consuming a podcast that ranks when you through like most people host podcasts at Libsyn. Blueberry is another one, and that's something that people that are thinking about podcasting is what you need to think about is that you need not only a web host, but you need a media host, because if you put your media on your web host, you're gonna get shut down.
Oh, okay.
It's too much. The bandwidth is too much, and they'll ask you to stop. So.
Oh, okay. See, the way that I've always done it is I got a Squarespace page, and so I just upload the different audio podcasts to that, and people can go to iTunes and download the feed, and whenever I upload the new episode to the website, it gets dispersed out there. But you're saying that there's a chance that the amount of traffic now that's assuming that there are a lot of people actually downloading it. If you're Mark Maron and have 1.5 million subscribers, they might say, "Hey man, you're sucking up our bandwidth." But for people like us with relatively lower numbers of subscribers, of course, I don't know how many subscribers do you have to some of your shows?
Our Hannibal Fan podcast is our best one, and it topped over 2,000 an episode.
Really?
Yeah. So we were doing really well.
I take it back. They would complain about that kind of traffic.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
And then we would do all of them through the same site. So I have like one. I don't do things the way Libsyn would like for me to do. I have like one Libsyn account, and I use RSS feeds throughout my different web hosting to feed them. Where Libsyn would prefer that you would have an account for each one. Whatever. I'm going to do what's best for me, guys.
Do you have to pay for that account?
Yes.
Okay, there you go. No wonder you're ticking them off.
Yeah. Well, I do pay for a larger account than normal. You can start out with a small account that's like under $10, and I get one that's quite a bit more. But the benefit I get is I also have my own mobile app. So Horror News Radio has their own mobile app. So you can go and search for Doc Rotten or Horror News Radio or HNR, and you can download it on any mobile device. So that's a big thing.
Both iOS and Android?
Yep.
Okay. So so folks, go out and if you're interested in hearing more from Doc and his cohorts over at Horror News Radio, do a search in the App Store for your phone. Look for Horror News Radio.
Yep. And if you can't find it that way, do Doc Rotten, and it comes up as the creator of it. So.
Okay. Did you do you do programming? Did you make that app yourself?
No, they did. It's through Libsyn. So,
Libsyn made the app for you. That's cool.
Yeah. So
nice.
Even though our RSS feeds, we have an RSS feed for every podcast. In the mobile app, you get them all.
Oh, okay.
You get
cool.
every single episode of every single podcast.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about the evolution of your sites and your shows. You talked a little bit about how almost all of them have changed names over time. You guys founded Horror News Radio how long ago?
We started. We're 3.5 years in for that.
Mm-hmm.
We started April 1st, 3.5 years ago.
Okay. And you have just recently started Gruesome Magazine.
That's right.
What is that, and how is that in relation to Horror News Radio?
Well, one thing is that when we started it, we ended up with 5 co-hosts.
Okay.
Thomas, myself. We brought in 2 from horrornews.net, which was the Black Saint, Santos Ellen Jr., and Dave Dreyer, who at the time was working for horrornews.net. He has since moved on to Diabolique Magazine.
Okay.
And writes for them, along with Rock Revolt and some other sites.
Okay.
Santos writes for like Fangoria and other sites. And then we brought in a female co-host, goes by the name Vixen. Okay. And the 5 of us have been together. She joined us on like episode 5, and then so the 5 of us been together every week since then.
Okay. And you're the only one that lives in the central North Carolina area, right? The rest of them are scattered out around the country?
Right. Everybody else is scattered from New York to Ohio to Florida. So we're all over the place. Okay. And we all do it through Skype. Skype has been around for a while. So what you were asking me earlier, if we can squirrel back around to that, is once I started my own podcast, I had to get more equipment.
Okay.
More investment. So I had to get a mixer, and to figure out how to get everybody in and blend it all in. I used my iPad to bring in sounds and music. And I usually record everything as we play it. So I'll play the intro song and the outro right as we record, so everybody can hear it. If we play like a trailer, the audio trailer, we'll listen to it. If we have feedback, we can all listen to it right then.
Okay.
And it works out if it's audio feedback, which we do have audio feedback capabilities. We have a plug-in on we use WordPress. So we have a plug-in on the site that allows people just to plug right in and use their mic and leave us a 90-second audio.
Oh, that's nice. Cool.
And so, but what you asked is how did we get from there to Gruesome Magazine?
Right.
And we just launched Gruesome Magazine in October. We had a soft launch in the middle of September as we figured out, got our feet wet and figured out the ins and outs of the, running a site like that. But it is.
Hey, everybody, go click over here and see if it crashes. It might, and that's what we need to figure out.
That's exactly right. But this weekend we just had our 100th article, so
cool.
We've been right at it. We have a number of writers that have joined us, including Bill Mulligan and Christopher G. Moore. But we also have Joseph Perry, who is from South Korea. We have T.J. Fowler, who is from Finland. And we also have Joey Fittos. He's up north from I think it's New Jersey, if I get that right. I always get it wrong from mad at me. But he does our TV shows. He'll cover Screen Queens and The Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead, and writes up things every week for that. So we have quite a growing staff. We have others as well. There, Jeff Moore is starting, and we're training a new one as well. So. But we started that because we're kind of dissatisfied with the horror sites that are out there right now. They become a little too commercial. They get you go to a site and you have to blip through a bunch of ads to get to the content.
Oh, it's amazing. I have ad blockers on my web browser, and it's still a lot of these sites are still a mess, and some of them won't even load because they can detect you have an ad blocker and they say, hey, you're cutting off our revenue, we're not going to let you look at the site at all. But I can't imagine what someone not using an ad blocker, what their internet experience must be like. So I can be sympathetic to that some of these sites are just completely junked up with ads and everything.
Yeah, it's ruining the balance between the advertising and the content, because the content's still good, but we're also worried about it being too abundant, because it's just like you go away for a couple of days and there's just no way to catch up, because it's it's all this and that, and so we're approaching our site with far more attention to the community, the people that are into it, and we want our readers and fans to get to know who's actually writing the articles. So it's as much about the Christopher G. Moores and the Bill Mulligans and the Dave Dreyers as it is the site itself.
Right.
And so that's what we're wanting to do, and it's a slow start, but and then our business model is not CPM. It's going to be different. We have things that people can participate in, such as like Patreon and our T-shirts, and we have books that we got coming out next year that we're trying to figure out what direction we want to go with that. Since we have a whole gaggle of writers, what are we going to do? So
right. Well, I definitely want to talk about that kind of stuff, the ways you're monetizing the site. But just to be clear, so you guys do not own HorrorNews.net or Horror News Radio.
We do own Horror News Radio.
You do own Horror News Radio.
Yeah, Horror News Radio is now a part of Gruesome Magazine, but we are still friends with HorrorNews.net. It was a friendly parting.
Okay. So basically, the way it works is Horror News Radio has moved from HorrorNews.net over to Gruesome Magazine.
That's right.
Okay. I can follow it now. I was trying to do my research ahead of time, and I said I cannot make heads of tails how this is working. I'm still seeing branding for both, but that makes more sense now. Okay. So Gruesome Magazine is the new thing. You guys own it and you run it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we do.
And, at the moment, not really making much money off of it, but that's something it appears you're trying to get started on with. Well, like you said, you have a store, you're selling shirts and that kind of thing. You have upcoming books, hopefully, that you can sell. And you also have something that I've been interested in looking into, which is Patreon. I listen to a couple shows that are supported by Patreon, some of them pretty successfully so, because they have a pretty wide fan base. Mm-hmm. And I can see here you guys are actually off to a pretty good start, I would say. You have do you mind me, I mean, it's public, do you mind me mentioning some of the numbers here?
No, go right ahead.
You already have 15 patrons, which I'm sorry, I'm doing all the talking here. Why don't you go ahead and talk about what Patreon is and what went into A, the decision to use it, and B, the process of setting up an account and getting all that set up.
Well, Patreon is kind of a different version of like Indiegogo, which a lot of filmmakers are going to be very familiar with, and those kind of things. But in this case, it's made primarily for musicians and people that put out regular content. It certainly isn't limited to that. It's also really great for podcasters, because podcasters similarly do a lot of regular content.
Right.
So a patron is somebody that contributes to your account. And you can offer a number of different ways to participate. You can do it per item that you upload, like per podcast, which is what we're doing right now. Or you can do it monthly, which is more like a subscription service. We are in the process of changing. We are changing over from the per episode, and we're looking into moving everything, which is going to be a daunting task. And we're targeting the first year to a monthly thing where subscribers would subscribe for a monthly basis. And looking at other people out there that are doing it, it seems to be a much more accessible way of approaching people to do it. It's a little bit it's easier to understand. people are used to a monthly subscription or something like that, and you can tie it into your site. And now that we have Gruesome Magazine, we can do that. We can tie into a subscription service on the site, and those who have Patreon accounts can get to a login and password to our site and get to unique content. And that's where we're heading. So that's going to be something far different. But there are people out there, what I get out of right now Patreon is enough to cover most of the upfront costs.
Right, like your hosting fees and that kind of stuff.
The hosting fees, because I have a web hosting, and then of course the media hosting, and then keeping up with equipment and headsets and microphones, and we're saving up to buy a new mixer because it's 4 years old, and it's every once in a while it gives us a headache. It doesn't want to work right, and those are always fun times. And you don't want things to go wrong because editing is a nightmare.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
And that's another, and something for your listeners that's really interesting to keep in mind if you just want to think about a podcast. The ratio between actually recording the podcast and the work that goes behind it is usually 4-to-1. So an hour-long podcast, you're going to look at a minimum of 4 hours to get it all done.
Right, between the various editing and mixing, and then processing the audio or video. I can say from experience, if you're doing a video podcast and you actually record separate feeds, that's one of the reasons why I do this over Google Hangouts, is because it's recording one video feed, and Google detects whose microphone the audio is coming from and switches automatically. So because I'm lazy, now I don't have to edit multiple video feeds. But if, there have been some episodes, if you look at some of our sit-down interviews, a lot of our early episodes, or recently some of our ones with Michael Howard, when we were talking to him about his feature film, Where We're Meant to Be, those were 2 or 3 cameras recording the whole time. And when you have to go back and edit video, then you're talking about, I would spend 8 or 9 hours editing a 1 hour episode. So the post-production is definitely something to keep in mind if you want to do any kind of show, but especially including podcasts. Like you said, a lot of people seem to think it's just sit down on a microphone and blab for 30 minutes and that's your investment. But there's really a lot more that goes into it if you want to have a really quality show. Yeah,
I mean, there are ways to circumvent that. There's like Blogspot Radio, and there's ways that you can pretty much get in, get it done, get out. But you're going to get what you get.
Right.
You're not going to be able to put any post-production. You're not going to be able to clean it up. You're not going to be able to remove the ums and the unos and splice in some interesting stuff to give your listeners, your fans, the people that are spending their time listening to what you're doing, the best possible experience. And that's really what we want to do. So.
Right. That's something people don't really think about. They say, I'm doing this thing for free. People don't have it's not costing them anything, but what it costs is their time. And, even though it's kind of daunting to think about it, you're not just competing against, in your case, you're not just competing against other horror related podcasts. You're also competing against any other podcast, against TV shows, against going to actually see a movie or watching TV or playing around on the internet, watching YouTube videos, or going for a jog or spending time with your family. I mean, people's time commitment to a show is a real thing. And, that's something you have to keep in mind. You can't say, oh, just because this show is free, I'm going to piddle around for 45 minutes and people will be satisfied. You need to keep them interested the whole time.
Yeah, we have segments on our show, and our show runs anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So that's the Horror News Radio. The other ones are usually about an hour. We usually try to keep them at an hour. Mm-hmm. We also do like Decades of Horror is another one, which we tackle the 70s. And Bill Mulligan joins us on that quite often.
Okay.
So he
seems a bit of a history buff.
He is a walking encyclopedia on everything horror from back in that age and knows about the craziest things. We recently did like Dracula versus Frankenstein, and which is a 1971 Al Adamson film, and he was great on that. He brought all kinds of stuff, and we actually we gave him the reverb on it, so he sounded like the Dracula character on that.
Oh my god! Oh man, I bet he loved it.
Oh, he was eating it up.
Oh, he must have been in heaven. So now I have noticed, and I was just curious what your thoughts were on this. I noticed over the summer a couple times you guys were talking about some summer blockbusters, mostly like comic book movies. And I was just kind of curious how those fit into things. Is that just kind of, every now and then we're kind of good, it just so happens all the hosts went and saw Age of Ultron, so why not spend a couple minutes talking about that since that's what we all saw? Or is it just kind of honoring all things geek?
Well, we do kind of reach past the boundaries of horror. We kind of say we do horror, sci-fi, fantasy, and all things gruesome. Mm-hmm. It's kind of our tagline. And
those genres can kind of intermix sometimes.
They can. I mean, if you think about it, if you really think about what's happening in some of these, there is a robot that is killing people. That's kind of a horror thing. You can really, but right. Yeah, we often catch flack for covering the superhero films, but we all love them. We do it, and we have as many fans that love it that don't.
Right.
We not every show is going to be for every listener. Some of the people like the films that are getting close to like what they call torture porn, the real gruesome and bloody, and when we do Green Inferno, well, the ones that might want to come and listen to when we do Ant-Man aren't really going to be interested in that. So right. We do appeal to a broad fan base in that respect. We do know who our listener is, who we're targeting, but we are targeting a listener that would listen likely to or watch likely any of these films. But yeah, we do cover the superhero films. That's mainly because we love them. I mean, we're going to be covering Star Wars this year. I mean, how can you not cover Star Wars?
Why wouldn't you? Everybody else will, yeah.
Yeah, we tend to try to keep it to the horror films, and the horror films have been in the theaters hit and miss this year. It's been the DVDs and the VOD films that have really struck gold and done some spectacular films to watch. It'll be on the top 10 list that we do every year. One of our most popular episodes.
Oh, okay. So give us a little preview. What are, give me a couple horror movies that you've been a fan of this year.
This year, looking back, It Follows was a great horror film that came out.
I've heard really great things about that one.
Yeah, and it's available on DVD and VOD right now. It came out early in the year, but it didn't catch a lot of attention, and it's pretty spectacular. Right now in the theaters is Crimson Peak from Guillermo del Toro, and that's a beautiful film. And
you saw that one. In fact, people, if they head over to Gruesome Magazine right now, I believe the top thing on the website is your review of that movie.
It is. If when you see this, it might be something else by the time. I know that
those of you listening in 2017, 2018, checking up on the back catalog, there, if you don't see Crimson Peak on the front page, there's a reason. You're a little late to the party.
Yeah, because Goosebumps is going to be up first thing in the morning. So.
Okay.
And that's out right now, and that did really well. So, and that was fun. That was a fun film. I like them a little more.
That's the family horror, right?
It is. It's very much family horror, and for that reason, it did really well.
Yeah.
So there's a variety of films like that came out. Tales of Halloween is one that just came out on VOD, and it's 9 or 10. I'm trying to remember. I think it's 10. 10 short stories, all kind of woven together. It's kind of like there's a film Trick or Treat that came out, I think 5 years ago now.
Okay.
Wow, 5 years ago, and it has that flavor to it where the characters are interwoven and it's all in one city. So you see familiar landmarks and like the trick-or-treaters go from short to short, but it's so much fun. And there's a lot of films like that are out there right now. So.
Okay. Is there still some upcoming stuff that you're looking forward to? I assume I know Christopher Moore is, but I assume you also are probably excited for Ash versus the Evil Dead, the TV show.
Oh yeah, well, TV. Holy cow! Horror on TV has never been as abundant as it is.
It's pretty vibrant right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to cover. I mean, The Walking Dead is ruling them all. But Ash versus the Evil Dead, that's going to be interesting because it's on Stars.
Mm-hmm.
8 half-hour shows, and from what I gather, it's a blast. They really recapture that flavor that Sam Raimi brings, and he directed the first episode. And of course, Bruce Campbell is back as Ash Williams.
Right,
is a little older. It has been
just a little bit.
What, 20 years?
Oh, it's got to be more than that because Army of Darkness was the early 90s. That was like 92 or 93.
You're looking 20, 25 years.
Right.
And but they play on it, and they play. If you've seen the trailer,
it's a nice trailer.
Yeah.
Anybody who's watching this and hasn't seen it yet needs to go check that out. It's all over YouTube. Yes. Definitely.
Yeah, but there's a lot of movies too. I am a found footage fan. I'm the only one on the podcast, and I can't. But I own it. I earn it. I wear the badge proudly. And Paranormal Activity: The Ghost Dimension is coming out soon.
Right.
This coming weekend, and it's throwing in a little 3D mix, which reminds me of how William Castle back in the day did 13 Ghosts. And you when the ghost came out, you would put on your little visor, and you could decide to see or not see the ghost. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this mixes with found footage.
Found footage 3D seems a little contradictory, but it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
But what they've done, I think it's fascinating. They have this camera that they discover in the house, and the camera will record what the eye doesn't see. So when you see that camera, you see it in 3D. So I think they found a gimmick that make it work. It's also supposed to wrap up the Paranormal Activity.
Oh, supposedly this is the last one, huh?
Yeah, we'll see about that. We've heard that before, right?
Yeah, really.
And then in the coming weeks, they got The Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse, which is another horror comedy, and it looks to be a blast.
We almost got advance tickets to that one, but they were sold out.
Ah, man. It looks like it's going to be really good. It's R-rated comedy, so I'm looking forward to that. And then,
I like the horror comedy ones. Those are usually pretty good. Probably my favorite in recent years would be Cabin in the Woods.
Oh, yeah. Cabin in the Woods. Perfect, yes.
Mm-hmm.
That one redefined and kind of undermined the genre.
Right. At the same time, but that's Joss Whedon. He can do that.
Yep.
So we're about halfway through October. What's on your Halloween watch list for the rest of the month?
Oh, wow.
Are you just trying to keep up with what's out there now, or are you going back and watching some old classics?
Well, I'm so slammed with Gruesome Magazine as the editor of it as well. I have to kind of keep up with what everybody's doing and pass out the movies. But I usually end up with a double feature every weekend. This past weekend, I got to see a micro-budgeted film called Savage Land, which I recommend if people can find it. It played earlier this year at Nevermore Film Festival.
I feel like I've heard of that one.
Yeah, and it kind of ended up being like a documentary following this one guy who survived this massive killing, and he ended up, it's fictional, but he ended up being tried and convicted of committing all the murders of this small lazy little town in on the Mexican border, but he also was a camera buff, and he took 37 pictures. And the documentary goes through the 37 pictures to kind of say a different story. And it's a fascinating way of looking at this particular genre of horror film. And
that sounds really unique. Yeah. I'll have to check that one out.
And what else is on my plate? I mean, I go see the theatrical one, so I'm looking forward to the films we're talking about. Another one I'm seeing is The Last Witch Hunter with Vin Diesel, which looks like it's either going to be really awesome or a really awesome train wreck.
Yeah, I see. I didn't think that. I thought that looked more like fantasy. I thought that was more gunning for that Lord of the Rings money. But who knows? It probably has a few scares in it too. Are they billing it as a horror movie?
Only in the fact that they're killing witches and they have a lot of monsters. There's a part where Vin Diesel is saying, you're not qualified for this, and this big monster's storming down on them through a cave, and so it's more fantasy, but it definitely has the creatures and the elements to it.
This could be a Guillermo del Toro movie, or it could be Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters.
I think the latter is where we're heading with that. Yeah, yeah. But you know, hey, that one is
You know,
I like for that one. I like the
grab a beer and turn your brain off and just have some fun.
Yeah, that director that did Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters also did the Dead Snow films, which
that's the same guy.
Same guy. Which
I love the first Dead Snow. I haven't seen the second one.
Oh, second one's even better. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. You don't have that the tired tropes you get at the beginning of Dead Snow, which I loved, but a lot of people complained about that. You know, it until General Herzog shows up with all their zombie crew, people get tired of it. But this one starts off with a bang and keeps going.
Nice.
It's been out for a while.
Oh, you know, good found footage one I saw. I mean, it's from a few years ago, but I think I saw it last year on Netflix. Have you ever seen Troll Hunter?
Yes.
So that's a good found footage movie. I love that one.
Yeah, it was on the remake list, and I don't know what happened to it, but
you know, I can see if you have a movie that came out, you know, 20, 30, however many years ago, and you want to remake it. But there's this weird trend now of a successful foreign movie comes out, and the next year they want to make an American version of it. They did that with Let the Right One In.
Yep.
And it's like, I mean, the movie was only 3 or 4 years old when they made the American version. I'm like, come on, people, just, you know, knuckle down and read some subtitles. You're getting the exact same movie.
Yeah, I mean, well, Wreck and Quarantine came out, you know, almost the same time. So
right.
The Spanish and the American version of the same film. So, but they're, you know, it's not limited to that. They're, you know, all your what is it? Big icons are coming.
Old Boy, they remade after like 3 or 4 years. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo movies.
Yep.
You know, not only did they remake it a couple years later, but apparently they did it. I mean, I thought it was a decent movie, but apparently it wasn't good enough for them to make sequels. So if you liked the American version and you want to see how the story goes from there, you got to go back and watch the original foreign trilogy to see parts 2 and 3. So what the hell?
Didn't do as well, so they couldn't do that part. But you know, your classics icons are coming back. Your Freddy Kruegers, your Michael Myers, the Leatherface. They're all, and they're coming up with new names like reimagining or recalibration. They're wary of the remake thing. But even though Freddy Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street just got remade 5 years ago, they're planning on doing it again. Leatherface is coming out soon, which is going back to when he was a child, and Michael Myers is getting ready to come back with another Halloween film.
Oh, wow.
That's not going to be the Rob Zombie ones. So.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Well, you know, they can do that. They can make weird sequels and reboots whenever they want. People love those characters. It's interesting, though, when you have someone like, and I'm thinking specifically of Freddy Krueger, when a character is so tied to an actor that, you know, I dare say half of the backlash against the Freddy Krueger remake was, well, it's not Robert Englund, and right. He's Freddy Krueger. You know, I mean, I think you can switch out Jason and Michael Myers and Leatherface, you know, as need be. But Freddy actually had a face and a recognizable actor behind it. So is the new Freddy Krueger supposed to be Robert Englund, or are they going to try recasting again?
I think from what I hear, they're going to recast it again.
Okay. Yeah. Well, best of luck to them. You know, they got those are big shoes to fill.
Yeah, it doesn't always work, does it?
So, well, I don't want to keep you too long. We're starting to round the corner on the 1 hour mark, but in, you know, I guess in the vein of films that are coming out, stuff to keep your eyes on, are there any local films that you're aware of, local horror or anything that you're interested in coming out?
Local one, well, of course, all the films that Christopher G. Moore do and Bill Mulligan.
Right, Christopher G. Moore. Just to go over him, Christopher G. Moore has Knobgoblins, which is on the festival circuit now. Again, filmed in your basement.
I'm biased, yes.
I know Jason Butarin has one coming out soon called "Don't Let the Light In." I don't know if you've heard anything about that.
I've heard a little bit about, yeah. Yeah,
okay.
I'm looking forward to seeing that.
The only thing I've seen is the poster, but you know, I'm hoping the movie's good.
I'm looking forward to one that Brett Mullins excuse me, I'm mixing two people together.
Brett Mulligan, he's a great guy.
Yeah,
we all love him.
Them together. Brett Mullins, he's filming one called I'm going to screw up the name, so sorry, Brett. Malevolent, I think is what it's called, and he's filming that up in Virginia and also in North Carolina, and it's kind of looking at the Italian Giallo films or Jello films.
Okay.
And it has that flavor to it. It has the color schemes and stuff. It looks really good. I got to see a sneak peek of a scene. He let me see it, and it looks spectacular. He's doing a good job. So
when does that come out?
They're still filming.
Oh, still filming. Okay.
Still filming, yeah. So it's probably be next year sometime.
Okay. I know Christine Parker is working on an updated version of The Telltale Heart. That's filming right now, so I'm not sure when it'll come out. I assume Bill Mulligan's involved in that because
he is.
Bill Mulligan, Christine Parker, peanut butter and jelly.
Yep, I know them well. Yes.
Yes, we've neglected to mention that you've done a little acting in your time. I believe your debut was in Christine Parker's last feature film, which came out earlier this year, Fix It in Post.
Yeah, Fix It in Post, and I don't know if I would call it acting. It was really long, but I started out
some great reaction shots.
And following Bill Mulligan's lead, he's like, "Shake your head, shake your head, shake it which way?" But yeah, it was. I started out like I just saw a random call for being a zombie for a day, and she needed some recurring characters, and I said, "Why not?" And got to meet all those people working on it, and there's a big crew for that film. It's an ensemble cast. And
a ridiculous number of actors. There was something like 20 people in almost every scene.
Yeah, it was insane. And they were all great. I can't believe how many, I just didn't know. You just didn't realize until then, all the abundance of people locally that do this thing. And
right.
And through
it's doing shows like this where, I think I know the dozen people in the area that are doing stuff. And then in the course of an episode, someone will drop 3 or 4 names I've never heard of. And then that's just a whole bunch more people that I have to go and meet. And it's been amazing to find out how many more people are out there that I didn't even know about, but then also how many of them know each other. I found out about Will Stein because he actually messaged me out of the blue on Facebook. I had no idea who he was, but he had heard of the show and wanted to be on it. And I said, yeah, let's do that sometime. So he comes on the show and we're talking and he starts mentioning Bill Mulligan. And I'm like, oh yeah, I know Bill. I met him at Doc Rotten's house.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But, yeah.
We even have a fan of the show, Sammy Castle, who's I think out of the Triad, or is it Triangle? I get which one's which, Triangle and Triad. Greensboro.
Greensboro is Triad. Raleigh is Triangle.
Thank you.
Durham, Chapel Hill.
I still get those confused. And he was in a film called Hank versus the Undead, which was filmed over that way.
Okay.
Out now. We got to review it for the site and check it out. And forgive me, I can't remember who the director is, but it had a great cast in it. The young actors that they had in the lead were really fascinating and held the film together and had some really interesting ideas. Like I've never seen a zombie get attacked by a vacuum cleaner, so it's got that.
Oh wow, this sounds like the. Did you ever play a video game called Dead Rising?
No. Did they have vacuum cleaners in that?
It was at least the conceit of the first one. The first one's the only one I played, but it was you were in a gigantic shopping mall during a zombie apocalypse, and you had to find stuff in your environment to use as weapons. And so practically anything in any store could be a weapon, but then you could also MacGyver things together. Like, I don't know, you could strap propane tanks to the back of a chainsaw and then light the back of the propane tank on fire, so you'd have like a rocket propelled chainsaw that would just go through the crowd and everything. Or you could put spikes on a baseball, you could hit zombies with a baseball bat, or you could take some kitchen knives and duct tape them to the bat, and then you had a spike back you could hit people with. But it was all about coming up with creative combos of weapons to kill zombies with, and that's kind of what this sounds like, killing zombies with a vacuum cleaner.
Yes, and it didn't suck, which is
That's a plus.
Which is a good thing. But speaking about short films, that was a feature length, by the way. But speaking of short films, if anyone's listening, we are starting a new segment on Gruesome Magazine, and it's called, see if I can get this right, we just came up with it, Super Scary Short Saturday.
Super Scary Short Saturday.
Yes, and what it is that we don't usually put content on Saturday, but on Saturdays we're going to have 1 or 2 or more reviews of short horror films.
Okay, and this won't just be local. These are any ones that you come across that you're aware of.
Well, anyone. Well, it's not going to be just local. It'll be, but we are looking for anyone who would be interested in having us review their short to contact us, which then go to Gruesome Magazine. gruesomemagazine.com/feedback.
Okay, awesome.
Contact us. So, and get with us about seeing their films and getting them reviewed. Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. It sounds like you guys got a lot going on. The website is off to a great start. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So we'll go ahead and wrap things up here. Go ahead and get the plugs out of the way. You are, of course, Doc Rotten of Horror News Radio, which is now Horror News Radio is still a site, right? That's going to stick around?
Yes, we have horrornewsradio.com.
Okay, so horrornewsradio.com is for all the shows. The new website, the new main website is gruesomemagazine.com.
Yes.
People can find, if people want to support any of, I guess, to support the podcast specifically, or does it also support, does the Patreon also support Gruesome Magazine?
Right now it is for the podcast, but at the first year it's going to morph into being more about the website.
Okay. Yes. So if you go to, and you can let me know later on if you're going to change the name of this, but if you go to patreon.com and search for Horror News Radio, you can find the Horror News Radio page and chip in a couple bucks to help support. Like I was saying earlier, you've got 15 patrons, $28 per episode, which is pretty good because I assume that's all the episodes of all your shows.
Yes.
And you guys
just do Horror News Radio.
Oh, just the main, that's just for the main podcast. Okay. But yeah, your first goal is only to help pay for hosting fees and studio costs is only $50 per episode. So you're already 60% of the way there. Congratulations. And, anybody who likes horror movies or, podcasts or just loves to hear these guys talk about them, by all means, go and chip in a few bucks and, help them reach their goals to at least help make this thing break even. But, of course, there's stretch goals and everything, and you can go to the store on Gruesome. Is the store on Gruesome Magazine?
It's not there just yet.
Will be soon. Okay.
But it is over at horrornewsradio.com/tees.
Okay.
But you can go to TeePublic and find us there as well. And we have shirts like Dracula's Soul Brother, which is, I think you can guess who that is. We have a thing it's a phantom, it's a demon, or the devil himself. And it has, it looks like the car from 1977. Okay. We have the Horror News Radio shirt with the artwork that we had commissioned.
Right, and that's a good looking shirt.
And we have are you a fan of the Big Trouble in Little China by any chance?
I am, and I finally got a chance to go back and watch it on Netflix a couple months ago, and it was just as good as I remembered.
Oh, it's so great. There's this
little Kurt Russell.
Little thing they call I think they call it the Phantom or something like that. It's a little floating thing full of eyeballs.
Oh yeah. That weird piece of crap. Yeah.
So we have that on a shirt, and it says, "What he sees, Lopan knows."
Oh God. Oh man, that is great. Yeah. Like you said, right now it's over on Horror News Radio. There it is. I can see it now. I pulled it up. Go over to horrornewsradio.com. In the future, probably on gruesomemagazine.com, and Definitely. Go to what was it? About. And then go down to HNR Horror T-shirts, and they got all the designs there. That is some good stuff. Is there anything else you wanted to plug? Twitter feeds, any of that stuff?
Well, we have Twitter feeds at Horror News Radio and at Gruesome Mag.
Okay.
Couldn't Get Magazine, Gruesome Mag, MAG. Of course, you can find me at doc_rotten. And if you go to horrornewsradio.com/feedback, yes, you can find out a whole gag of other things such as Facebook. We have a Facebook page, and we also have a Facebook group. Now, the Facebook group, we have much more interaction.
Mm-hmm.
People join up, and we have a lot of interaction and feedback through that. So that's
okay, cool. That's good. Cultivating a community. That's the first step to being able to raise funds is to develop that loyal following, and then you have people who are willing to support you. So I'm glad to see that's all working out for you.
Yeah, we call ourselves the Gru Crew.
The Gru Crew.
And our fans are the Gru Believers.
The Gru Believers. I like that. Why is there not a shirt that says Gru Believer?
Oh, there will be.
I'm a Gru Believer. Sell them like hotcakes. Well, awesome. Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me. I hope I haven't tied up too much of your evening or wasted too much of your time, but I certainly had a lot of fun. I hope people watching or listening are enjoying it too. But this, of course, has been Local Film Talk, talking with John Slattery, a.k.a. Doc Rotten. You can find more of our show on YouTube. Go to our YouTube page. Just search for Local Film Talk. Of course, you can subscribe there, and you'll be the first one to see our new shows. Also, we do the podcasting thing. You can you can find our site. It's on trianglelife.tv. Go to the Local Film Talk page, and you can subscribe to the RSS feed there. Still haven't been able to get Apple to figure out the problem with submitting the RSS feed for that show. So it doesn't appear in iTunes yet, but you can go to the Local Film Talk page of trianglelife.tv and subscribe to the RSS feed there. If you're interested in seeing what I'm up to, I'm at Paradise_Bob on Twitter. And of course, Local Film Talk has its own Twitter feed. We're always posting stuff about stuff going on in the local film community. And check us out. We'll try and keep you abreast of what's going on and keep talking to more cool people like John, who, of course, you're totally welcome to come back on anytime you want to chat about anything.
Oh, well, there'll be some stuff coming out.
Mm-hmm. At the very least, go ahead and pencil in a week next October.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And there might be a thing called Star Wars happening this year that we should check about. So.
Star Wars?
What? Is that? Yes.
Okay. Is that a documentary? I hear it's a real-time documentary.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, definitely. Well, I look forward to chatting with you again sometime. And best of luck with Gruesome Magazine and Horror News Radio.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's great being here. Thanks.
All right. Take care.